The Forbidden Act. The morning sun cast long shadows across the crystal fields of New Horizon, humanity's most remote mining colony. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood at her clinic window, watching children play among the strange formations that had made this world so valuable to the Galactic Union. The crystals hummed with an energy that seemed to respond only to human touch, making New Horizon both a treasure and a mystery. Elena smiled as she watched her daughter's best friend, 8-year-old Zara Chen, leading a group of children in what appeared to be a game of tag around the crystal spires. Zara was the daughter of the colony's chief engineer, a brilliant girl who had inherited her father's curiosity about how things worked. What made Zara special, though, was how the crystals seemed to glow brighter whenever she came near them. "Dr. Vasquez, we have a situation." Captain Marcus Steele's voice crackled through her communicator. As the colony's defense commander, Marcus rarely showed concern, but today his voice carried an edge that made Elena's stomach tighten. She activated her comm unit. "What kind of situation, Marcus?" "Long-range sensors detected ships entering our system. 3 vessels, configuration unknown. They're not responding to our standard greetings." Elena looked back at the children playing in the crystal fields. Something cold settled in her chest. "Are they threatening?" "Too early to tell, but they're maintaining distance and scanning our surface extensively. I'm implementing security. Protocol 7, keep the children close to the residential areas today." Elena was about to respond when a bright flash of light erupted from the crystal field. She looked out to see Zara Chen standing in the center of a ring of crystals, all of them glowing with an intensity she had never seen before. The other children had stopped playing and were staring in wonder. "Marcus, you need to see this," Elena said, grabbing her medical scanner and rushing outside. By the time she reached the crystal field, a crowd had gathered. Zara stood perfectly still, her small hands pressed against the largest crystal formation. The entire structure pulsed with blue-white energy, and Elena's scanner was going crazy with readings she didn't understand. "Zara, sweetie, step away from the crystal," Elena called gently. The girl turned, her eyes wide with excitement. "Dr. Vasquez, I can hear them. They're trying to tell me something about the old ones, about a war that happened long ago." Engineer Chen, Zara's father, pushed through the crowd and knelt beside his daughter. "What are you hearing, little star?" "They're warning us," Zara said, her voice taking on an odd quality that made the adults exchange worried glances. "Something bad is coming. The crystals remember when the Sky People tried to take children before." Captain Steele arrived just as the crystal's glow began to fade. He took readings with his military scanner, and his face went pale. "Elena, these energy signatures, they're off the charts, and those ships in orbit just changed course. They're heading directly for us." High above New Horizon, Commander Thyrix of the Zolonian Empire studied the readings his science team had gathered. The Zolonians were an ancient race, proud of their technological superiority over younger species like humans. They had observed human colonies for decades, but New Horizon was different. The children here seemed to have a unique ability to interface with the ancient crystal technology. "Commander, the energy resonance when the human child touched the crystal array exceeded all our projections," reported his chief scientist. "If we could understand how their young ones activate these ancient technologies, the Empire could unlock power sources thought lost for millennia." Thyrix nodded slowly. The Zolonians had been members of the Galactic Union for over 1,000 years, but they chafed under the restrictions placed on research involving sentient species. However, humans were still considered a minor species, barely 3 centuries into space travel. Surely a few specimens taken for scientific advancement would not cause significant trouble. "Prepare the extraction team," Thyrix ordered. "We will conduct a research mission. Take only the children who show the strongest crystal resonance. Make it appear as though raiders attacked the colony." "Sir, the Galactic Union's protection accords specifically forbid." "The protection accords were written by weak species who fear progress," Thyrix interrupted. "Humans are barely evolved from their homeworld. By the time they mount any response, our research will be complete." What Commander Thyrix did not know was that humanity had learned hard lessons during their early expansion into space. The colonists of New Horizon might seem defenseless, but every human settlement was connected to a network that had been carefully hidden from galactic view for 3 centuries. Elena Vasquez was updating the children's medical records when the attack began. The first sign was the power fluctuating throughout the colony. Emergency lights bathed everything in red as the main generators failed. Through her clinic window, she saw ships descending from the sky, sleek vessels that moved with predatory grace. All families to emergency shelters immediately. Captain Steele's voice boomed across the colony's speakers. This is not a drill. Unknown hostiles are landing. Elena grabbed her emergency medical kit and ran toward the residential area where the children would be gathering. The evacuation protocols were clear. Protect the young ones first, everything else was secondary. But as she rounded the corner near the crystal fields, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Zolonian soldiers in powered armor were moving through the colony with disturbing precision. They weren't attacking the adults or damaging infrastructure. They were systematically locating and capturing children. Elena watched in horror as they used some kind of stunner device on little Marcus Webb, the colony administrator's son, and loaded his unconscious form into a containment pod. "Zara!" Elena shouted, spotting the girl running toward the crystal formations with 3 other children. But the Zolonians had seen them too. Elena sprinted across the open ground, her medical training forgotten as maternal instincts took over. She reached Zara just as the first Zolonian soldier rounded the crystal spire. Without thinking, Elena threw herself between the alien and the child. "You will not touch her," Elena said, her voice deadly calm despite the terror racing through her veins. The Zolonian soldier tilted his armored head, studying her through his helmet's visor. When he spoke, his words came through a translator that gave his voice a mechanical quality. "Stand aside, human. We require the young ones for scientific advancement. They will not be permanently harmed." "Over my dead body," Elena replied. The soldier raised his weapon, but before he could fire, Zara pressed her hands against the crystal formation behind them. The entire spire erupted in brilliant light, and a pulse of energy rippled outward. The Zolonian's armor sparked and failed, sending him crashing to the ground. "Run!" Elena shouted, grabbing Zara's hand. But more soldiers were coming, and Elena could hear the cries of other children throughout the colony. As they reached the emergency shelter, she saw Captain Steele coordinating the defense with his small security team, but they were vastly outnumbered. "Status report," Elena called as she pushed Zara into the shelter. "They've taken 12 children," Steele said grimly, "including the Chen girls' friends, the Peterson twins, and young David Park. They're withdrawing now." Elena's heart sank as she realized Zara was safe, but her friends were gone. "Can we pursue them?" Steele shook his head. "Our ships are mining vessels and short-range shuttles. Those Zolonian warships would destroy us before we cleared the atmosphere." But Elena was already moving to the colony's communication center. Her fingers flew across the quantum transmitter controls as she activated a channel that had remained dormant for decades. The connection she made bypassed all normal galactic communication networks, traveling through encrypted relays that few beings in the galaxy even knew existed. "This is Dr. Elena Vasquez, Colonial Medical Officer, New Horizon Settlement." She spoke into the transmitter. "Emergency code, Omega 77 Alpha. Hostile aliens have abducted human children from our colony. Repeat, they have taken our children." The response came immediately, and it was not from the Galactic Union or any known human authority. The voice that answered was calm, professional, and absolutely terrifying in its certainty. "Dr. Vasquez, this is Admiral Sarah Cross, Terra Defense Command. We have received your transmission. The Terran Protection Doctrine is now in effect. Maintain your position and document everything. Help is coming." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. She had heard whispers of the Protection Doctrine, a policy created after humanity's first disastrous contact with hostile aliens centuries ago. It was rumored that Earth had sworn never again to let human children be taken, no matter the cost. As the Zolonian ships disappeared into the void with their precious cargo, quantum messages raced across the galaxy through hidden networks. In secret bases scattered throughout human space, ships that had never appeared on any official registry began powering up their engines. Crews that officially didn't exist received orders that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. On distant Earth, in a bunker buried beneath the Mariana Trench, ancient computers awakened systems that had waited 3 centuries for activation. The Terran Protection Doctrine was more than a policy. It was a promise written in blood and quantum steel. Commander Thyrix had made the fatal mistake of assuming humanity was weak because they appeared peaceful. He was about to learn that humans had spent 3 centuries preparing for this exact moment, and their response would be swift, merciless, and absolute. The hunt was about to begin. The hunt begins. Admiral Sarah Cross stood in the command center of the TDF Nemesis, a vessel that officially did not exist in any galactic registry. Around her, holographic displays showed star charts spanning 3 sectors of space, each one marking the location of hidden human assets that were now coming online for the first time in centuries. "Admiral, we have confirmation from 17 Shadow Fleet vessels," reported Commander Williams, her chief of staff. "All units are responding to the Protection Doctrine activation." Sarah nodded grimly. The Shadow Fleet was humanity's greatest secret, ships built in hidden shipyards, crewed by volunteers who had given up their official identities to serve as guardians of human space. For 300 years they had waited and trained for this moment. "What do we know about the Zolonian ships that took our children?" Sarah asked. 3 heavy cruisers, commander class, heading towards Zolonian space at maximum burn. Williams replied, "Our deep space sensors tracked them until they entered hyperspace. Based on their trajectory, they're likely heading for the research stations in the Thyron system." Sarah's jaw tightened. Dr. James Park, the colony's xenobiologist and father of one of the kidnapped children, had transmitted everything he knew about Zolonian research practices. What they did to alien specimens in the name of science was considered barbaric even by galactic standards. "Time until we can intercept? Days, Admiral. But our intelligence suggests they'll reach the research facility in 4. Then we go faster." Sarah turned to address her bridge crew. "I want the entire Shadow Fleet converging on Zolonian space. Send the signal to activate Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was something even most Shadow Fleet personnel had never heard of. Deep in human space, artificial intelligences that had been dormant since the early days of space exploration began to stir. The most advanced of these was known simply as the Architect, and it had spent centuries designing contingencies for exactly this scenario. Meanwhile, in the depths of a Zolonian research station, 12 human children huddled together in a sterile containment cell. Zara Chen pressed her face against the transparent aluminum wall, studying the alien technology that surrounded them. Even in captivity, her brilliant mind was working, cataloging everything she saw. "They keep taking us one at a time for tests," whispered David Park, Dr. Park's son. At 9 years old, he was the oldest of the captured children. When they brought back Sarah, she was really tired and had marks on her arms. Zara nodded. She had been taken for examination twice already, and both times the Zolonian scientists had been fascinated by how she could activate their crystal technology simply by touching it. They didn't hurt her exactly, but they treated her like a laboratory specimen rather than a person. "We need to get out of here," said one of the Peterson twins, Marcus. His sister Maria nodded agreement from where she sat nearby. "I've been watching their patterns," Zara said quietly. "The guards change every 6 hours and there's a 2-minute gap when the corridor is empty, but the door is electronically locked." David looked thoughtful. "My dad taught me about electronic systems. If I could get to the control panel—" "The crystals," Zara interrupted suddenly. "There are crystal components in their technology. I can feel them humming when I get close to the walls." She pressed her hand against the containment cell wall and immediately several of the children gasped. The wall was glowing faintly where she touched it, and they could hear a low vibration throughout the station. "Zara, stop!" David hissed. "They'll know what you're doing." But Zara shook her head. "I think the crystals are trying to help us. They don't like being used this way." She closed her eyes and concentrated, the way she had in the crystal fields back home. They remember being free. Light began to pulse through the walls of the station, and somewhere in the distance they could hear alarms beginning to sound. Admiral Cross received the report while her fleet was still 3 days out from Zolonian space. The message came through channels that shouldn't have existed, delivered by the architect through quantum entanglement networks that bypassed normal space-time limitations. Admiral, I'm reading massive energy fluctuations from the target research station. Her communications officer reported. It appears to be some kind of cascade failure in their crystal matrix systems. Sarah smiled grimly. That's our children. They're fighting back. But her expression darkened as she read the full intelligence report. The Zolonian Empire was mobilizing their entire fleet in response to the energy surges. They thought they were under attack by an unknown enemy and were preparing for war. Ma'am, incoming transmission from Galactic Union High Command, her communications officer announced. The holographic image of Ambassador Krell materialized in front of Sarah's command chair. The Calarian diplomat looked more stressed than she had ever seen him. Admiral Cross, I am transmitting under emergency authority from the Galactic Union Council. We have received reports of significant military mobilization by Terran forces. Please explain your intentions. Sarah stood slowly, her expression cold. Ambassador, Zolonian forces have committed an act of war against humanity by abducting our children. We are responding accordingly. Admiral, the Union was not informed of these allegations. Surely this matter can be resolved through diplomatic channels. The time for diplomacy ended when they took our young ones, Sarah interrupted. The Terran Protection Doctrine is now in effect. I suggest you contact the Zolonian Empire and inform them they have 72 hours to return our children unharmed, or they will face the full response of humanity. Ambassador Krell's face paled. Like most galactic species, the Calarians had heard whispers about human military capabilities but had dismissed them as rumor and propaganda. Admiral, I must remind you that the Zolonian Empire is a founding member of the Galactic Union with significant military assets. Starting a war over this incident could destabilize the entire sector. Then I suggest you convince them to return our children, Sarah replied calmly. Because if we have to come and take them back, there won't be a Zolonian Empire left to destabilize anything. The transmission ended, leaving Ambassador Krell staring at empty air. He immediately opened channels to every contact he had in Zolonian space, desperate to prevent what he was beginning to realize could be a catastrophic conflict. Dr. James Park materialized in the research station through means that should have been impossible. His image flickered slightly, indicating he was using advanced holographic projection technology, but his presence felt completely real to the captured children. Dad, David called out, pressing against the containment wall. I'm here, son. Doctor, Park said, his voice heavy with emotion. All of you, listen carefully. We're coming for you, but we need you to be ready to move when the time comes. How are you talking to us? Zara asked, fascinated despite their dire situation. Dr. Park smiled slightly. Humanity has had 3 centuries to prepare for something like this, Zara. We've developed technologies that most of the galaxy doesn't know exist. Right now I'm sitting in a ship that's invisible to their sensors, and I'm using quantum entanglement to project my consciousness into their station. The children gathered around his flickering image. Are our parents okay? Asked Maria Peterson. Everyone on New Horizon is safe, Dr. Park assured them, and they're all very proud of how brave you're being. But we need you to keep being brave, for just a little longer. He looked directly at Zara. The crystals you've been activating, they're causing system failures throughout the station. Can you do it again, but stronger this time? Zara nodded solemnly. I think so. They want to be free just like us. When Admiral Cross gives the signal, I want you to touch every crystal surface you can reach. The energy feedback will disable their containment systems and give our rescue teams the opening they need. As Dr. Park's image began to fade, he looked at each child in turn. Remember, you are human children, and that means you are never truly helpless. We will come for you, and we will bring you home. 3 hours later, the first Shadow Fleet vessels dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Zolonian territory. What the Zolonians saw on their sensors defied everything they thought they knew about human technology. The ships that appeared were unlike anything in the galactic databases. They moved with impossible grace and speed, their hulls seeming to bend light around them. When Zilonian patrol ships moved to intercept, the human vessels simply vanished, from sensors only to reappear behind them. "Status report," Admiral Cross demanded as the Nemesis emerged from its stealth field directly above the research station. "Station is heavily defended, Admiral. 12 Zilonian cruisers in defensive formation plus the orbital platforms." Sarah nodded. "Signal the children. It's time." Far below, Zara Chen pressed both hands against the crystal matrix wall of their cell and opened her mind to the ancient technology. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every crystal in the station began to resonate with harmonics that the Zilonian equipment couldn't handle. Power systems failed throughout the research facility, containment fields collapsed, and in the confusion that followed, Sarah Cross's rescue teams materialized through quantum teleportation technology that made the Zilonians' best efforts look like stone tools. The children were free, but the real battle was just beginning. The Reckoning Captain Lisa Morgan materialized inside the failing research station with her rescue team, just as the last containment fields collapsed. The Shadow Fleet's quantum teleportation technology allowed them to bypass shields and armor entirely, appearing directly where they were needed most. "Targets acquired," she announced through her comm system as she saw the 12 human children huddled together in the corridor. All children appear to be mobile and conscious. Zara Chen looked up at the woman in advanced combat armor and smiled. "You came for us." "We always come for our children," Captain Morgan replied, kneeling down to Zara's level. "Are any of you hurt?" "They took our blood and did scans," David Park reported, speaking for the group with surprising maturity. "But they didn't really hurt us. We've been taking care of each other." Lisa felt her heart clench with pride and rage in equal measure. These children had endured capture and experimentation, but had maintained their courage and looked after one another. It was quintessentially human, and it reminded her exactly why humanity had built the Shadow Fleet in the first place. "The station is compromised," reported Sergeant Kumar through the comm. "Zilonian forces are trying to restore containment, but the crystal cascade failure is spreading. We need to evacuate within the next 10 minutes. But as Lisa began organizing the children for transport, alarms throughout the station suddenly changed pitch. Through the transparent aluminum windows, they could see Zilonian reinforcements arriving, an entire battle fleet dropping out of hyperspace. "Admiral Cross, this is Captain Morgan. We have the children, but we've got company. Big company." Admiral Sarah Cross watched the tactical display as the full might of the Zilonian Second Fleet arranged itself in battle formation around the research station. 47 heavy cruisers, 12 dreadnoughts, and over 100 support vessels. It was a force capable of conquering entire star systems. "Admiral, they're demanding our surrender," Commander Williams reported. "General Vex Thyron himself is commanding the fleet. He's claiming we've violated galactic law by attacking a legitimate research facility." Sarah's expression didn't change. "Open a channel to General Thyron." The holographic image of the Zilonian military commander appeared on the bridge. General Thyron was an imposing figure, even by Zilonian standards, with intricate metal implants, covering half his scaled face and arms that ended in cybernetic claws. "Human Admiral," Thyron spoke with the arrogance of someone accustomed to being the most powerful being in any room. "You will surrender immediately and submit to Galactic Union justice for this unprovoked attack." "General," Sarah replied calmly, "you have 5 minutes to stand down your forces and allow us to depart with our children. This is your only warning." Thyron's laugh was like metal scraping against stone. "You command perhaps a dozen ships against my entire fleet. Your primitive vessels may have surprised our patrol ships, but you face the military might of an empire that has conquered star systems since before your species discovered fire." Sarah nodded to Commander Williams, who activated a series of previously hidden communication arrays. Throughout the star system, space began to shimmer as hundreds of additional vessels dropped their stealth fields. The Shadow Fleet had been waiting. "General," Sarah said as Thyron's confident expression transformed into something resembling fear, "humanity learned a long time ago that the universe is not a safe place for the weak. We chose not to be weak. The vessels surrounding the Zilonian fleet were unlike anything in known galactic technology. Ships that seemed to exist partially outside normal spacetime, their hulls covered in adaptive armor that shifted and flowed like liquid metal. Weapons systems that channeled forces most species couldn't even detect, let alone counter. "This is impossible," Thyron whispered. "Our intelligence reports indicated humans possess only basic space technology." "Your intelligence reports told you what we wanted you to believe," Sarah replied. "Humanity has spent 3 centuries preparing for the day when someone would threaten our children. Today is that day." But before either fleet could engage, a new voice cut across all communication channels in the system. It was young, clear, and absolutely fearless. "This is Zara Chen, speaking for all the children who were taken." The transmission was coming from inside the research station, broadcast through the crystal matrix network that now resonated throughout the system. "We don't want anyone to die because of us." On the bridge of the Nemesis, Admiral Cross felt a mixture of pride and concern. "Zara, you and the other children need to prepare for extraction. We're coming to get you." "We know," Zara's voice replied. "But Admiral, the crystals are telling us something important. They're not just power sources or technology, they're alive in a way, and they're angry about how they've been used." Throughout the Zolonian fleet, crystal-based systems began to malfunction. Power fluctuations cascaded through ship after ship as the ancient technology responded to the children's influence. Dr. James Park, monitoring the situation from his stealth ship, understood what was happening before anyone else. "Admiral, the children aren't just activating the crystals, they're communicating with them. This technology is semi-sentient, and it's been enslaved by the Zolonians for millennia." As if responding to his words, every crystal-powered system in Zolonian space began to resonate. Ships lost power, orbital platforms went dark, and on the Zolonian homeworld itself, the massive crystal generators that powered their civilization started to shut down. General Thyron's dreadnought was one of the first to lose power entirely. His holographic image flickered as backup systems struggled to maintain basic functions. "What have you done?" he demanded. It was President Chen who answered. Zara's grandmother had arrived aboard the flagship of Earth's official fleet, bringing with her the full diplomatic weight of humanity. Her image appeared on every screen in the system as she addressed not just the Zolonians, but the entire galaxy through quantum broadcast networks. "I am President Chen of the Terran Republic," she announced. "What we have done is what we always do when our children are threatened. We have removed the threat." Her voice carried the authority of someone who had led humanity through 3 centuries of careful preparation and hidden growth. "The Zolonian Empire has violated the most fundamental law of civilized space by abducting and experimenting upon our young ones. This action constitutes an act of war, and humanity responds accordingly." Throughout galactic space, the transmission was received by billions of beings who had never imagined humans possessing such capabilities. The carefully maintained image of humanity as a minor, peaceful species was shattered in a single moment. However, President Chen continued, "Humanity does not seek the destruction of entire civilizations. We seek justice and the guarantee that this will never happen again." Elder Morath, the ancient leader of the Galactic Union Council, appeared via emergency broadcast from the Union capital. The 1,000-year-old being looked exhausted and desperate. "President Chen, the Union formally acknowledges that grave wrongs have been committed. Please do not let this escalate into galactic war." "That depends," President Chen replied, "on whether the galaxy is willing to accept new realities." Captain Morgan's voice crackled through the comm system. "Admiral, all children are secured and ready for transport. They're asking to speak with their families." "Patch them through to the colony," Sarah ordered. What followed was perhaps the most important conversation in galactic history. 12 human children speaking from the heart of a failing alien research station addressed their parents and their species with wisdom that belied their years. "Mom, Dad, we're okay," David Park said into the comm system. "But we learned something important while we were here. The aliens who took us aren't evil exactly. They're just scared and desperate like bullies at school." Zara's voice joined in. "The crystals remember when they were free before anyone used them for machines and weapons. They want to help good people, but they don't like being forced. "We forgive the aliens who took us," said Maria Peterson, her young voice carrying surprising authority. "But they have to promise never to take any children again. Any children from any species." The implications of this statement rippled across the galaxy. The children weren't just speaking for themselves or even for humanity. They were proposing a fundamental change in how galactic civilization operated. President Chen seized the moment. "Let this day mark the beginning of a new age," she announced. "Humanity proposes the Sacred Covenant, a galactic law protecting the young of all sentient species from exploitation, experimentation, or harm. And if any civilization violates this covenant?" Elder Morith asked quietly. Admiral Cross answered before the president could respond. "Then they will face the combined might of every species that values the future over the present, starting with humanity." The Zilonian fleet, powerless and drifting, offered no resistance as human ships moved to escort them home. General Thyron, his pride broken along with his ships, formally surrendered and agreed to stand trial for his crimes. But the real victory wasn't military. As word of the Sacred Covenant spread throughout the galaxy, species after species signed on to the new law. The children of New Horizon had done more than escape their captors. They had fundamentally changed galactic civilization. 6 months later, Zara Chen stood once again in the crystal fields of New Horizon. But now she wasn't alone. Children from dozens of species came to learn from her about the ancient technology that connected worlds across the galaxy. The crystals, freed from forced servitude, shared their knowledge willingly with those who approached them with respect and wonder. Dr. Elena Vasquez watched from her clinic window as her daughter played with the first Zilonian child to visit the colony, a young female whose parents had volunteered for the cultural exchange program that was part of their species' reparations. "Hard to believe it all started with children playing in a crystal field," Captain Steele commented, joining Elena at the window. "No," Elena replied, her voice soft with wonder. "It started with the universe recognizing that some things are too precious to lose, and humanity finally showing the galaxy who we really are when our young ones are threatened." In the crystal fields, Zara Chen laughed as she taught her new alien friend how to make the crystals sing, their harmonious tones, carrying across New Horizon like a promise that some bonds transcend species, politics, and fear. The Sacred Covenant had become more than law. It had become hope for a galaxy where all children could grow up free from fear, knowing that they were protected by forces more powerful than armies or empires. The age of humanity's hidden strength was over. The age of galactic guardianship had begun.